unrestricted warfare to the Chinese means kinetic warfare, like Pearl Harbor. That is the last resort. They want to win. It's sort of like Sun Tzu. Know your enemy. If your enemy doesn't know himself and you know your enemy, you're going to win every time. Win without even having to fight a battle. So under unrestricted warfare, they'll use propaganda, they'll use bribery, they'll use what they call lawfare. While you can use these international organizations and force us to, like Alinsky, force us to obey the letter of the law of all of these international agreements while they break them all. And even to the point where we've seen them use biological warfare, because that's what it is. When they sent it to the world, while they restricted it within China, it was biological warfare. When there's a crisis underway, it's easy to just focus down on it and just study Minnesota as if it's just a unique event, or maybe a follow-on to Ferguson and Baltimore and other events like that, even going back to the LA riots or Martin Luther King riots. But there's you have to force yourself to pull the focus back out, and look even beyond national and look global, because we're not the only country in the middle of a crisis right now. There is truly a global crisis right now, even before this pandemic, in economic terms. But with this pandemic on top of everything else, countries from Brazil to Russia are struggling with this thing, and we're not through with it. It would be nice to say we're just past it. South Korea has done about as good as any country could. They had breakouts after nightclubs were open. They opened schools back up, and now they're closed again. So it's glib to just say, hey, it's all a hoax and we can just ignore it. We can't ignore it, but nor can we allow this, lockdown panic to keep us shut in our houses and turn us into slaves. We have to learn how to live with this thing that China unleashed. And China did unleash this thing. Whether they did it intentionally or accidentally on purpose by having very lax and unprofessional standards, in their Wuhan P4 Virological Institute, they let it out. And once they let it out, they let it spread to the rest of the world. They could have fallen on the hand grenade, so to speak, and the world would have been appreciative if they had said, we're locking down China and Wuhan, and warned the country, even back last December when they knew what was going on. They completely knew what was going on, but they didn't. So once they decided to lock down China, but allow the flights to the rest of the world, they turned this COVID-19 into a bioweapon against the war. And I want to talk a little bit about parallels that I see between the 1930s and Japan and the 2020s in China. And you can even roll Nazi Germany into it, because, in my opinion, China has turned from being a Marxist-Leninist country that it started out under Mao. It went through just an authoritarian phase. Now it's going into a national socialist phase. Even Hong Kong Chinese and Taiwanese, they're saying what's happening in the mainland. They're not Chinese communists anymore. They're Chinese Nazis. They're building up their national racial, the Han Chinese identity as like a Superman, really smart. We deserve to run the world. And in some ways, this is worse than the 1930s. Yeah, in the 1930s, we had a lot of communist fifth columnists in the US and in Europe, but nothing like today, where our universities have been basically turned into communist training grounds under the rubric of social justice warriors. But it's hate America. America stands for evil, and so many of these colleges, to get the dollar from the Chi-Com government, who is paying for these students, We have our universities full of essentially Chinese communist agents. They come to learn the technology, but they also come to learn our country. They come to commit espionage. They even have uh, Chinese intel officers, in my opinion, and in the opinion of others, they actually have them do training exercises in our country, knowing that we're such a non-serious country that there won't be any bad consequences. A couple of months ago, they had a couple of quote unquote Chinese students infiltrate the Navy base in Key West, all the way into the communication site. And knowing once they're caught, they'd just be slapped on the wrist and sent home. And I'm sure when they got back to China, they went back to their Intel Officer Training Academy, had, celebrations all around, high fives, to where they can tell all the other students in Intel Officer Training, America is a joke. It's wide open. You can do anything. You can sneak right into their secure bases and nothing will happen to you. So this is all a part of what Americans have to come to grasp with, which is something that the Chinese call unrestricted warfare. You've heard of this. It was written in 1999 by a couple of Chinese communist colonels. But unrestricted warfare to the Chinese means kinetic warfare, like Pearl Harbor. That is the last resort. They want to win. It's sort of like Sun Tzu. Know your enemy. If your enemy doesn't know himself and you know your enemy, you're going to win every time. Win without even having to fight a battle. So under unrestricted warfare, they'll use propaganda, they'll use bribery, they'll use what they call lawfare. While you can use these international organizations and force us to, like Alinsky, force us to obey the letter of the law of all of these international agreements, while they break them all. And even to the point where we've seen them use biological warfare, because that's what it is. When they sent it to the world, while they restricted it within China, it was biological warfare. And something that really upsets me is that we have this pandemic in our country, and instead of being angry at the people that launched it at us, the Chinese communists, we turn against each other. So from the Chinese perspective, think about how brilliant this is, how perfect this is. When the Japanese launched the Pearl Harbor attacks, it unified us against them. 4 years later, we dropped an atom bomb on Hiroshima, utterly defeating them. The Chinese drop a biological bomb on America, and we attack each other. We go at each other's throats. So, I mean, from their point of view, think about how brilliant that is. If you can divide your enemy, if you can cause your enemy to fight within itself, then you may not even have to go to war, a kinetic war, because your enemy is going to fall on its own, under its own weight. So think about this all as unrestricted warfare, Sun Tzu for the 2020s. This is what China is doing. They are doing a full court press in every area, all around the world. I wish I had a good map of this, but I haven't been able to find one because it's mostly written here and there. The Chinese have hundreds of major construction projects going on all around the world, particularly in Southeast Asia and in Africa. They have literally hundreds of thousands of quote unquote construction workers spread all over Africa and Southeast Asia, working on giant projects, living in barracks under military conditions. And I can promise you, as a former special warfare officer, anywhere that there are 500 Chinese workers, there is a platoon of Chinese SEALs, and there is a platoon of intel officers. They now have the ability across Africa. I mean, it's been in the news recently that they're building buildings out of the goodness of their heart for these African governments, but they're completely infested with bugs and eavesdropping equipment. Well, they're not only doing that, they are bribing and threatening politicians across the third world. And now having spread their pandemic, having spread their bioweapon, they're coming into countries like the Philippines, with rescue packages where they're going to help these third world countries recover from the biological weapon that they unleashed. And the help is going to come in the form of aid packages and loans that these countries will never be able to pay back. And if we ever do go into a kinetic war, the Chinese already have hundreds of thousands of troops distributed around the world, in place. I mean, this is something that the Japanese could never have dreamed of in the 1930s. And meanwhile, our country is completely disunited, at our throats, at each other's throats, and we can't even identify the enemy. So, and the globalists, they see China as a way of wrecking, the USA and the West. China sees the globalists as useful idiots to help weaken and cripple the West. But together, they're formidable, the globalists and the Chinese communists. And we've got to see what's going on and get over our infighting and our own civil war, because the real war is coming.
Listen, I had my lawyer on the phone, my family lawyer, really nice guy, smart guy this morning, and he said, so you really, his mother's a nutritionist, retired. He goes, so you are taking your zinc and taking your vitamin D3 and taking all this? And I said, yeah, on a regular basis, because they're called essential. The media's like, Jones claims he's got a COVID-19 cure selling zinc pills that I've been selling for years. No, it's not a cure. Oxygen is not a cure for asphyxiation. You just asphyxiate if you don't have it. Somebody already hung you because you're a traitor. Well, the oxygen's not going to help because your brain's dead. But they play these little games like, you say your krill oil has D3 in it. Because they play on the ignorance of the public. Folks, I take D3 because it makes me have more virility than when I was 16 years old. I take X2 because it makes me younger and stronger. And of course, it's essential and it's pure. I take Turbo Force when I got to go to a rally or do some event and I'm already exhausted, already worked 10 hours. And I have trouble going to sleep and wish I didn't take it. It's too strong. It's the strongest, clean 10-hour energy you're going to find. That's what it's formulated for. The big sale of last week, a lot of stuff sold out, so it had to partially end, but we have the Memorial Day special that's extended, but not much longer. I've just been so busy, I haven't come up with new specials. This is the biggest special of the year so far. Take advantage of it. Super Male Vitality is amazing, 40% off. Knockout is incredible. Sleep aid, I designed that, 50% off. Brain Force Plus, the big nootropic that we've not had on sale since Christmas, that's 50% off. That's a big fan favorite. That's not like energy, that's brain energy. It's a different thing. Bio True Selenium, 60% off. That's amazing. That's essential. Well, what's Bio True mean? It's from the mustard seed. It's totally organic. It's the strongest one out there. And I'm always honest with you. Got a side effect if you already have male pattern baldness to make your hair fall out. Chill Force, amazing, 60% off. Emery's Essentials hand sanitizer combo, 3 different great scents. 8-pack Power Stack, the best deal we've got at cost, 70% off. DNA Force Plus, 50% off. That's the most important thing other than the next two. They're right up there at the top together. I can't decide which one's better. They're both too good. Living Defense Plus, 50% off. Limited edition InfoWars face mask, $9.95 if you got to do the whole clown dance. Might as well get the word out while you're at it. Triiodine's going to sell out soon. Vaso Beats, 40% off. And a bunch of other stuff is about to sell out as well. And again, you need water. You need air to live. You need food. What's in food? Vitamins and minerals. Well, if you can get concentrated, high-quality versions of those key elements, that's what you do at InfoWarsStore.com, then it funds the Info War. It is the Info War, and it's real. Everybody now knows, man, we weren't playing around. This stuff's all real.
As the pressure to wear masks in public rises, it's important to be able to keep yourself safe while making a statement. That's why we created the limited edition InfoWars face mask. The easiest way to stay safe from incoming germs while showing your support for patriotism and freedom in the face of tyranny. Easy to use, just slip it on your way to work, the store, or anywhere that mandates a mask around you. These also make great gifts or purchases for friends, family members, neighbors, or anyone else concerned about their safety in public. If you must stay safe, you might as well stay stylish. Get the limited edition InfoWars face mask today at InfoWarsStore.com.